Good morning, guys. So I'm not with you today, unfortunately. I am at a conference, pastors conference in Philadelphia. Um, Today we're going to continue our talks on the Middle East. I believe we left off in Yemen. Let me just get my pen ready here. So, what should have happened is the substitute should have passed out a paper to you that says Yemen on it because if you remember on Friday, I somehow forgot to add that one into our notes. So it's a separate paper. The subs should be giving it to you. You can pause the video right now and wait, make sure that everyone has it because I'm very quickly going to go over Yemen while you have the papers in front of you. All right. Moving on. We already we did the five pillars of the peninsula. So again, guys, real quickly, this right here is the Arabian Peninsula. Okay. We have Saudi Arabia, which we talked about, and we're about to talk about Yemen. Look there. Here is the country of Yemen. All right. Yemen is in the southwest corner of the Arabian Peninsula. We talked about this. Most of the people are poor. They survive by farming and herding, and then they go to something called an open market called a bazaar, which is where they trade and sell goods that they either own or they've raised, and it's a bartering system a lot of times. So it, it's it's actually kind of interesting. You'll see them all lined up with a bunch of tents, and they'll go to somebody and say, "Well, I'll give you this goat for these vegetables." You know, whatever the trade is. I'm not doing an exact trade here, but that's what it is. What a lot of it is like. Okay. They have a low literacy rate, meaning that the the majority of people do not know how to read. Okay. Um, Obviously, reading gives you power, and anytime that a population does not know how to read, they actually are being deprived of power and the ability to even start to critically think. Um, They have a low life expectancy. They have dwindling oil and water supplies. They actually used to have a decent amount of oil. They used to have a good supply of water. They used to actually have gold, minerals, tons of stuff that the country used to have, but it was all mined. It was all pumped out, and it was exhausted. The supply was exhausted, and because the supply dried up, these people were left to basically they were left to be poor. They were left to fend for themselves. One thing that's happening here is that they're going deeper and deeper for water, and they've gone down right here. You can see it says 3,900 feet deep going for water. Um, and that is that is like taller than skyscrapers. Okay, and actually, it's taller than multiple skyscrapers. But they've gone down so deep and they're sucking all the water out that they can. But unfortunately, it looks like most of these wells are going to be exhausted within the next um, 10 years to 20 years. So 2 decades. Uh, it's, and they imagine living in that reality, knowing that your water supply is running out, your children aren't going to have enough water. 99.2% of the people are Muslim. That's right, Ryan. 99.2%. Their main cash crop is called khat. It's a narcotic. It's like in the sense of tobacco, it's like addicting. Um, and they sell it to Africa. A lot of people in Africa actually uh they actually chew on it. It's well, it yeah, they basically chew on it. Um And let's go on here. All right. This is the part that I really wanted to get into that we didn't really get into too much. But this land was once known as Sheba, and we can find the land of Sheba in the Bible. And you should know because I mentioned it. But how do we know Sheba in the Bible? Where did it come from? Anybody? Lavinia, I bet you know. All right. The land of Sheba was a place that where the Queen of Sheba came from, and she came to Solomon and said, I have a bunch of questions. I heard that you're very wise. I really want to, I heard that you have more wisdom than anybody else, and I want to hear I want to hear what you have to say. And any question she asked, Solomon was able to answer. And um, because of that, like she was amazed, right? And we're gonna look at this in a second. I actually put First Kings, uh, verses 1 through 13, I believe, if I remember correctly. I haven't looked at it. Um, First Kings 10, 1 through 13. But she came all the way from modern day Yemen, which was known as Sheba then. She came from there, traveled north up to Israel, and talked to King Solomon. So the Queen of Sheba journeyed to visit Solomon. First Kings 10, 1 through 13. If you have Bibles, you can open them. I know that that might be a long shot right now, but you'll be able to see it, I think, better than on the slide. So why didn't the slide? There we go. All right. So now so up here, 10:1. Now when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. She thought of the hardest questions she could think of and says, "You know what? I'm going to find out if Solomon is as brilliant as everybody is saying that he is." She came to Jerusalem with a very great retinue with camels that bore spices. These are pack animals. These are actually very common in Yemen, and in the Arabian Peninsula. But camels that bore spices, okay, that's important. Very much gold and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she spoke with him about all that was in her heart. So notice that she's coming with an abundance of riches right now with spices, which are very expensive. Gold, obviously, we know is expensive and still expensive. Precious stones that are mined, right? And those are very expensive. So she comes with these, and now you move on down here to verse 10, right here. Says, then she gave the king, meaning King Solomon, 120 talents of gold. So she gave him a huge amount of gold, spices in great quality, and precious stones. There never again came such abundance of spice as the queen of Sheba gave to Solomon. So she's bringing stuff seemingly from her own land, stuff that they've mined, stuff that they've picked up, stuff that they've actually the precious stones that they've polished and made them look beautiful. This is stuff that her country, the Sheba had, and when she brings them, obviously this is modern day Yemen. Yemen had all this stuff. It used to have all this, but it's gone. It's interesting to me anyway that Yemen is 99.2% Muslim. They believe obviously in Allah instead of the God of the Bible. But the Queen of Sheba had every opportunity to go and see what the God of the Bible did when she saw King Solomon's palace, when she saw the temple that was built by him for the Lord. She saw the blessings, the wisdom, everything. And like you would look at that and you'd be like, wow, the Queen of Sheba, you have such an opportunity to pass the knowledge of God onto your people. And I have no idea if she did. But obviously, modern day Yemen today shows you that like they did not learn about God. They did not take it to heart. Um, yeah, it's sad to see. But that's the Queen of Sheba. We just have some pictures here. I think we saw this the other day. These are some ruins that are in Yemen that can still be seen today. Out in the out like in some of the desert area. Now, this is believed. I labeled it the Queen of Sheba's palace. This is believed to be the palace that the Queen of Sheba actually had and was in when she um when she went to go see King Solomon. We can't 100% say this is what it was, okay? But this is believed. This is what it is, okay? I just thought I'd show you that. Uh so we have Sheba down here. This is around modern day Yemen, right? This is Saudi Arabia up here. This is the Arabian Peninsula. So she came from Sheba, follow the blue line right up to here where it says Canaan. That is Israel. That is the land of Israel. This section right here. Okay? Moving on. All right. So we did Saudi Arabia, right? We did Yemen. Now we're looking at Oman. Okay, this is in the southeast corner, and it's one of the hottest countries in the world. Daytime can be up to 130 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer, which you can fry an egg at 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So you imagine finding a stone in the desert that's been beaten on by the sun. Find yourself an egg, crack it open, and then just let it cook. Enjoy the egg. It's such a silly thing to say. All right. Most of the country is part of the Rub al Khali Desert. Uh, so I believe I put a picture in this. I hope I did because we'll see it in a second. So the people were here, all of them pretty much wear these long white robes and turbans. These this cloth that is wrapped around the head and tucked in. And they're kind of sewn together. It protects them from the heat, the wind, and the blowing sand. The, like where the desert is. Now picture this, guys. There's no grass, there's no trees or anything that are that's holding any of the sand or onto the ground. Because when dirt is different than sand, but when you have soil and it has grass that's grown on it, that grass helps to hold that soil in place so it's not washed away, right? The tree helps hold the soil in place so it's not all washed away. There's nothing holding the sand in place. In fact, sand dunes in deserts can change completely from one week to another, from one day to another sometimes. Like you could have a sand dune that's 20 feet high one day, and the next day it's totally gone, and a new dune has been created 300 yards away because the wind blew it so much. All right. So they have to wear these white robes that protect them from the heat, the wind, and the blowing sand. It can be there's a reason that we use sand to blast off rust because it's very abrasive. So if you have like 30, 40 mile an hour winds, there's nothing holding the sand really to the ground. Like there's no grass or anything because it doesn't really grow in sand. It's whipping and hitting you. You got like sandpaper, like, basically like hitting you and like it's being abrasive on your skin. This is why they're like one of the reasons that they have long white robes that cover the entire part of their body and they're not wearing shorts. Um, so sorry, the Portuguese captured some ports in 1507. Arab tribes forced the Portuguese completely out by 1650, so they did not like the Portuguese being there. The Portuguese wanted to be there because obviously they saw the value in having seaports in this part of the world. All right. The country is governed by a sultan or what's a Muslim monarch, right? So we know what the monarchy is. We have like a king over in England right now, right? In the UK, King Charles. The Sultan, same thing. He's a king, right? The same day as he's king, they call him a sultan, but he must be Muslim. So if you're a sultan, you obviously know that the person is a Muslim. Uh, Therefore, the government is called a sultanate. Okay. The capital is Muscat, and let's see. Uh, their coast. See, it says cost, so that should be coast right here. Coast, not Cost. Their coast is important because of its strategic location on the Persian Gulf. Ships pass through the Gulf of Oman, and we have a map I'm going to show you there. Um, if you're doing any trading there, it's true. Every ship is going to pass through there, and they are responsible for that passage. All right, keeping it safe, making sure that um, everything that the routes that the ships take are clear. That anything if a ship sinks, um, that they're responsible for trying to get along with whoever owns the ship. They're responsible for trying to get it clear, make sure it's not going to damage anything else, any other ship passing through. Islam is the state religion of Oman. That's a surprise when you have a Muslim monarch, a sultan, for your leader, right? So Islam is the state religion. 89% of the population is Muslim. 7% is Hindu. Christians are 3%. Converting, as always, I shouldn't say as always, but not uncommon in this area of the world. Converting a Muslim to Christian is forbidden. All right. Here is the picture of the desert. It's nuts, isn't it, guys? Like this is just this is just sand dunes as far as the eye can see. But you can actually get really windy like windstorms here. They're called and they become sandstorms. If you've ever seen what a sandstorm looks like, it is crazy. Um you will if you do not have shelter, if you're not protected, you will die in that sandstorm. It's a scary thing to behold because it's just sand is just being whipped at you however fast the wind is blowing. 50 miles an hour. It will not be fun. It will not be good, but that's a whole nother story. All right? Okay. Here we have see, here we have some traditional dress. We have see everyone here is in the white robes. They all have their turbans on. This is how the majority of this country how everyone dresses. White obviously helps to reflect the sun, helps keeps you cool. This is why they do that here because it's 130 degrees in the summertime. All right, so that was Oman, and I believe we're heading off to the United Arab Emirates. Yes, so the Emirates of the Persian Gulf. In the 19th century, various rulers on the coast of the Persian Gulf asked Great Britain to protect them from powerful neighbors. In return, they gave Britain control of their defense and foreign affairs. In 1971, Britain withdrew and all four mini countries became independent. So what was happening, guys, is that essentially, in the early part of the century, the world was changing, right? They realized like the people in the Persian Gulf realized this, but they also realized that they didn't have the ability to really deal with this. They were in a lot of ways they were tribesmen. They didn't have the organized countries that they had now per se. Okay, and there was lots of different tribes living there, and they kind of all came together and said, "Listen, we need somebody to help us here." Great Britain, Great Britain kind of stepped in because they were like, "Hey, we'll do this because you have seaports here um, that are valuable routes to us that we always need to keep open. We don't want you guys fighting. We don't want you guys fighting. We want to keep all this stuff open so that the trade is not interrupted." And they all agreed to that, and they said, "You know what? At the same time, we're going to give you the ability to do all of our foreign affairs because they had not at they had not since yet become as rich and as powerful as they are now." And they said, "You know what? You deal with that. You deal with all the foreign affairs. We'll deal with our local affairs. You keep the ports open, and you defend them as you see fit." And it's kind of like they had this little agreement how they would essentially be left alone and kind of hold on to like their way of life, right? But all that starts changing because in the 1930s, all these countries start discovering oil, and oil at this time is now a huge commodity. Everything needs oil. I mean, you have cars that need oil, right? You have industrial machinery that needs oil. You have boats that all need oil now, right? All of them have motors and props and propellers, and they're all being powered by this. Like coal I mean, they still have obviously like coal powered vessels, but coal is on its way out at this point. Everything's transferring over to gas and to oil. And so you have this happening, and suddenly everybody's like, "Hey, the Persian Gulf is full of this oil, and we want this, we need this. We're willing to pay money for this." And all these countries they were like, "Okay, well, we want this. We wanna do business then." And so they all started doing that. So the four countries that we're talking about are the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. Okay? So UAE right here, okay? The southwestern shore of the Persian Gulf. Each one is ruled by a prince or emir, its government is called an emirate. All right. So the seven states, all independent, they're all ruled by a prince. Okay. There's seven princes there, but they're also one country. How does this work? I'm glad you asked, class. All right. So you have all these seven states. Um, when Britain dominated the area during the 19th century, it enforced truces between the states to keep the naval lanes open. Okay, that was one of its jobs. Now, these states retain these states they retain their sovereignty over local affairs, but are now united into a single country. So each individual state, the seven of them, everything that happens in these individual states, the uh, the emir just um, they can control all of that. However, you know, you can cut one string, right? But cutting seven strings, it's harder. At some point, they all got together and said, "We should become a country because we're stronger together than we are apart. We'll just we'll just allow our own cultures and all our beliefs and all this other stuff, and the way that we live life, we won't interrupt that. Each state will each of the seven states, you can keep that, but we will unite as a country." Okay? And so what they did is they formed what's called the Supreme Council, and the seven emirs will come together into the Supreme Council, and they appoint a president as head of state. So they choose who is going to be president. Okay, and that president obviously will then represent the United Arab Emirates. Islam is the state religion, and the UAE allows a lot of religious freedom, which is actually very interesting here. You wonder if any of that Christianity from England in the early 19th century rubbed off on them. Uh, but because they're so rich and prosperous, because of the oil that they found and that they export, their prosperity has drawn many immigrants. So 68% are Muslim, 15.5% are Hindu, 9% are Christian. But you have people um, from India coming over. You have people from Pakistan coming over. They're they're all it's drawing many immigrants from around this area of the world here because they know they can get a better quality of life. Okay, so here we have a picture of them or of what do you call it? Of I believe this is Dubai. And here in Dubai, we have, oh, I forgot I was going to tell you guys about this. So, Dubai is a very interesting place. There are tons of sports cars here. Ferrari, Lamborghinis, just extremely expensive sports cars are all over the streets, in the parking lots. The per capita, these are like the most expensive sports cars per capita. They have the most in the world. Like so many people have them. It's unbelievable. Okay, and it's crazy because like you could be walking to like say like a Starbucks and there's like three parked outside. And I'm not even kidding you. And in fact, right here, this what you're looking at right here, you're actually looking at sports cars that are police cars. All right. This is the Dubai police force right here. No joke. I believe, look, I'm not a car guy, okay? But I believe this one on the left is a Lamborghini, and I believe this one on the right is a Porsche. Uh, I'm not sure. Here's a symbol right here. Maybe it's some sort of a Ferrari. I'm not a car guy, but they were extremely expensive. But it's funny because you could be on the police force and be driving a Lamborghini. Also, fun fact, Saudi Arabia, I mean, not Saudi Arabia, I'm sorry. Dubai is the first country to actually incorporate a hover bike into their police force. So you can look it up on YouTube, I'm sure, but look up Dubai Police Force hover bike. It looks like a motorcycle except no wheels. It has like a drone has four propellers on the side. That's what the hover bike has. And you will actually see this flying around in Dubai. Okay? It's a fun video to watch. They've actually incorporated it into their police force. I don't know exactly what they do. They definitely have it. So here's a map of the United Arab Emirates, right? Um you have them all right here, right? Okay. Um, with that being said, oh, sorry, I should have extended it to include Abu Dhabi, right? With that being said, I believe we're moving on from the United Arab Emirates. Remember, key things to remember here: seven separate states, all ruled by emirs. They kept their individuality and in their local matters. They have the Supreme Council that they elect their president from. They choose their president, I should say, and then that's it. Okay, so Qatar is right here. For centuries, the Arab people of Qatar supported themselves by raising camels, diving for pearls, and fishing. So, and like the UAE, they've also grown rich from oil, right? They found a bunch of oil here. This country out of out of all the countries in this area has drawn the most immigrants of any country. All right. So much so that 65% of the people living in Qatar now are actually foreign born. All right. So, I mean, think about that. You have, imagine if you being the sixth grade, right? All of a sudden, the ninth grade, the 10th grade, and the 11th grade invaded your classroom and said, "We're now in the sixth grade." All right. Now, Qatar's obviously allowed this to happen, right? But just think about that. You have all these people coming in, and you're like, wait, I don't know all these people. But like they're all immigrating into my sixth grade classroom here because they thought Mr. Norton was so interesting, right? That's what happened here. All these people came in, and they're all 65% of the people are foreign born, and they're now living and working in Qatar because they want a better quality of life. Because they do offer that there. All right, it's fairly easy to get a job here, as long as you're qualified. So there, and this is one of my favorite things. And I didn't write too much stuff on the notes for it, but there's very little water here, so they use desalination to get the drinking water, meaning that they pump out seawater, okay, and they put it through a process where they remove the salt, okay, and then what happens is they basically dump the salt back into the sea, and then they have water to drink. This is a very expensive process, but because they have such a little water supply, they have such a little water supply in Qatar. It is cheaper to do this than it is to import water from other countries. One drawback about this is that once they're taking this salt water out of the once they're taking the water out of the sea, out of the Persian Gulf, and they're taking and making it pure water that's drinkable, they're dumping the salt back into the sea. Now, what has happened is that they're finding, especially on the coastlines, is that the water there is far saltier than it used to be. And if they keep doing this, this is eventually going to be an issue because now you're going to have more salt than you want, and it's not going to be able to really support a lot of like sea life. Okay. So that is one issue that they're facing. They know they're facing this. Um, but I just thought that was an interesting little fact. Islam is the state religion, and surprise, surprise, Muslims are forbidden from converting to Christianity. The devil is working hard here, is he not? All right. Right. So right there. Okay. Uh, it is it, it is an emirate led by a sheikh, the male leader of an extended Arab family. All right. So the leader is called a sheikh. This is actually this is not normal. Bahrain actually has natural springs that provide the islands with fresh water. Um, this is not something that you see in the Middle East because Yemen doesn't really have water. Qatar has to make their own water. Saudi Arabia, I mean, they do have water, but it's not. It's a precious resource. Like these countries, this is something that is not. It's like what's the word I'm using to describe this? You guys are probably going to think of, it doesn't matter. Listen, this is actually an odd occurrence. This is not the norm. Okay. Um, a lot of international companies are headquartered there. That means companies from around the world that have offices and industries in all sorts of all other countries in the world. They've made their headquarters in Bahrain. All right. Um, it is a major port of call for U.S. Warships in the Persian Gulf, meaning that, but it's a major port of call, meaning that they use it extensively to dock our ships there for maintenance, to do whatever we need to. So we're obviously friends with Bahrain. They're one of our allies. Um, it's actually interesting if you look at this in the sense of uh, if you look at this in the Bible, Saudi Arabia and Bahrain are part of the Dan in Ezekiel chapter 38. And for the first time, really ever, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia kind of had naval exercises with Israel about a year ago, year and a half ago, maybe at this point. And that's not that they did not like Israel prior to this, okay? But now they kind of see like the benefit of wanting to be friends with Israel because a lot of other countries around Israel are kind of they realize like you know what these guys are a little they're like one screw loose, right? They they're so focused on attacking Israel that they're not worried about anything else, and it's kind of a little concerning. Maybe we want to be friends with Israel instead of enemies, right? So for the first time ever, they had naval exercises together. You don't practice naval exercises with somebody that's your enemy. Okay, you practice with people that are your friends. So obviously, there's a political connection here that's happening, and um, basically when Israel gets attacked, uh, these countries they're not going to help Israel, but they're going to look and say, "Wait, why are we doing this? Why are we attacking Israel? Why are you guys doing this? What's the point of this?" And when you see them doing these naval exercises and talking to Israel and having actual political conversations and diplomatic relations with them, you can be like, hey, this kind of lines up with what the Bible says that they're going to be, they're not going to stop people from going and attacking Israel, but they're also not going to help. And that's kind of, politically, you kind of see this stuff happening right now for really the first time in history, right? Um, anyway, I went off on a tangent, even in a PowerPoint. 83% of the population is Muslim, and conversion from Muslim to another religion is surprise, surprise, illegal. All right. So here we have the island of Bahrain, the country, I should say. So if you look down here on um, this little map here, right, it kind of gives you a better picture of here's Saudi Arabia, right? You have Qatar right here, and obviously Bahrain right here. So this is the island of Bahrain, um, and it's extremely small. However, it holds a lot of sway in the financial and political world. It's actually it's pretty funny when you look at it. That such a small place could hold so much power. Actually, in class, what I want you guys to do is there's questions there. You can look over all the notes that you have and do the questions. Um, the first set of questions and the second set of questions, I forget what page they are on. I truly apologize about that. Let me look right now. Hold on. So the questions should be on page 149 and also questions um on one sorry, 149 and 152. Page 149 and 152, there's questions in there. You can start doing those for your homework. On Thursday, I will look at the first set of questions, and on Friday, the second set of questions. So we will pick up on Kuwait. I hope you're all having a wonderful time, and hopefully, this is now the end and the bell is about to ring. Uh, be good for your substitute.